Hi everyone, welcome to the Modern Analytics Academy vignette session. This is going to be an extension of the Modern Analytics Academy filled with some shorter sessions, which essentially include new features and how to use them, frequent questions that we receive from you all, and any updates that we may have from a previous session. You can find all of the Modern Analytics Academy sessions along with the vignette sessions at aka.ms/MAA, and we encourage feedback on any questions you guys may have or just any other feedback in general on what you may want to see. So for today's session, we're going to talk about Synapse Data Explorer. And to give you a little bit of background context, telemetry data is the key to digital transformation. It's everywhere, and we find it in IoT sensors, application logs, click streams, and user activity, and it drives advances in the connected devices that we find in our homes, smart buildings, smart factories, and in devices that consumers and businesses rely upon on a daily basis. It's generating about terabytes and petabytes of data every single day, and we want to be able to connect all of this data that we get from smart factories, like you see, smart buildings, connected devices, and so on, and unlock all of these insights, trying to make some sense out of it. So to do this, we now have Azure Synapse Data Explorer, which is a distributed storage and query engine optimized for log and telemetry data. So what are some of the key pillars of Azure Synapse Data Explorer, right? What makes it so cool? Well, it gives near real-time insights on big data over data in petabyte scale, like I mentioned. It has an optimized engine to interactively query on log data because it indexes and compresses all of the data as it's being ingested. It's an integrating cloud data platform for time series and IoT data, as it has a lot of integrations with IoT Hub, IoT Central, and other IoT assets. And it has rich time series capabilities on the platform as well. And finally, it has automated scaling from gigabytes to petabytes. It's a distributed system with compute and storage that can scale independently. So it enables all of these analytics on gigabytes to petabytes of data. Here are some of the use cases where we can see the utilization of Data Explorer. You can build near real-time big data analytics solutions for analyzing your append-only data like events, click streams, logs, and more. You can also build near real-time log analytics solutions for your observability, monitoring, and security data. So you could do something like create a security log analysis or replace infrastructure-based log search solutions. Then you could build IoT analytics solutions for your connected devices. You can monitor them, analyze, and identify various trends. And then finally, if you're providing analytics services to your customers, you can build your solutions on Data Explorer because it's flexible with building single-tenant or multi-tenant solutions. So there's a lot of different use cases where this is applicable. Here is a architecture slide that I want to briefly cover. Essentially, when you're creating a Data Explorer pool within Synapse, and we'll go through this in the demo soon, but when you're creating a Data Explorer pool within Synapse, you're going to provision a Synapse Workspace, and then you're going to create a Data Explorer pool. And this pool that you create has compute, it creates compute and storage, which are decoupled. So essentially, Data Explorer pools implement a scale-out architecture by separating the compute and storage resources. So you can see over here, there's two types of compute and then the storage. So it enables you to independently scale each resource and, for example, run multiple read-only computes on the same data. The pools consist of a set of computes running the engine that is responsible for automatically indexing, compressing, caching, and serving distributed queries. And they have a second set of computes running the data management service responsible for background system jobs and managed and queued data ingestion. So all of the data is persisted on managed blob storage accounts using a compressed columnar format. And it provides a rich ecosystem for ingesting data using various connections over here. So there's Kafka Sync, IoT Hub, Event Hub, and a few more where you can pull in your data from. And then finally, it supports querying data from SQL, Cosmos DB, Azure Monitor, and Data Lake. So a lot of very cool, neat integrations within the Data Explorer. So Synapse is a unified experience. You have different capabilities within the same environment, and you can do analytics at scale. So till now, we've only had two analytic runtime engines, SQL and then Spark. A SQL more for data warehousing scenarios, and SQL on demand for doing querying on your data lake. And then Spark for your Spark engine for doing machine learning and data engineering. So now there is a third runtime engine called Data Explorer, which is specifically for telemetry analysis, and it's a really optimized engine. So essentially, based on your scenario, you can bring in your data into Synapse and then use your engine of choice. So I'm going to jump into a demo now to show you how to set up your Data Explorer pool, how to create a database table and ingest some sample data, and then visualize that data. So let's jump on in. So I start off in the Synapse Workspace within the Azure portal. And again, Synapse is our one-stop shop. So once you create the workspace, you get a ton of capabilities around Spark engines, data warehousing, telemetry and analytics, and pipelines and more. And so I've already created one right here, but if you don't know how to, it's very simple. You go into your Azure portal and you can just type in Synapse. You'll find something called Azure Synapse Analytics as a service. And so once you find that, you just kind of have to go through the process of creating one by hitting the create button and then filling out stuff like your subscription, resource group, and other fields. Cool. So once you have your Synapse Workspace, you're able to get started using the Synapse Studio. And you can just hit open on the overview page. I already have it open right here. So the first thing you want to make sure is that you have Synapse administrator role privileges. And so that should be there once you've made your Synapse Workspace, but just to double check, we can go into the manage icon over here and then go into access control. And I should see my name along with the role that I have, which is Synapse admin. So we're good to go. So the first thing we want to do is create a Data Explorer pool. So we're in the right area. We go to manage and then hit Data Explorer pools. And I've already created a Data Explorer pool, but we're going to hit new so we can go through the process. Essentially, you want to give it a name, so any unique name, and then you want to select a workload. So there's two options, storage optimized and compute optimized. Storage optimized instances are going to be ideal for workloads that maybe need fewer queries over a large volume of data. And then compute optimized instances are better for a higher rate of queries, but over a smaller data size. And so for our purposes, I've just selected compute optimized. And then you can go through any additional customizations that you want based on your scenario. So, for example, you could auto scale, which is going to kind of optimize your cluster performance and then your costs. So once you've done that, I kind of just left everything else as default in my pool that I've created here. So once this pool is created, you can see it in the data tab over here. So I can see my pool right there. Now I want to create a database, a table, and ingest some sample data. So I'm going to hit the plus sign over here and then hit Data Explorer Database Preview. And over here, you're going to select the pool that you just created and then enter a database name and choose your retention and cache options based on whatever your requirements are. So the default retention period is going to be 365 days. So this is for the amount of days for which it's kind of guaranteed that the data is going to be available for you to query. And that time span is measured from the time that the data is ingested. And then your cache period is going to be the time span for which you want to frequently query your data available in SSD storage or RAM rather than your longer term storage. So you're going to hit create once you're done with that. And I'm going to discard changes since I have my database over here. Again, this is all viewable in the Data Hub. And then now we can see this newly created database, and I want to start a new KQL script. So I'm going to hit those three dots, hit new KQL script. And essentially, if you're not familiar, KQL stands for Custo Query Language. And it's a very powerful tool that helps you kind of explore your data. And it uses a lot of the schema entities, or it's organized in a hierarchy that's similar to SQL. So in that, it has databases, tables, and then columns. And then this is a very helpful kind of documentation that I'll link where you can see example queries and just a little bit more about Custo. So let's try to run a couple of commands. First thing I want to do is create a sample table. So I'm going to pop into my other screen, grab that command, and hit run. So I can see that the query has executed successfully and the table has been created. So now let's open another script, and I want to ingest some sample data. So I'm going to hit run, and I'm ingesting some sample data from storm events. So essentially, things like when did the storm occur, and is there a little summary? So that's kind of some of the data that's in the CSV file. But once we start querying, we'll be able to see what it contains. So now let's query. I'm going to open a final script, and then I'm going to hit run. So again, this is in Custo Query Language, and we'll do some more so that you kind of see the syntax. But essentially, here's the top 10 rows, and it's sorted by the start time. And so we see the start time, end time of the event, where it occurred, so in which state. We see some California, some Michigan. The event type, so there's one called high wind, there's winter storms, if there were any injuries or deaths, and then kind of an episode narrative as well as an event narrative and a short storm summary, which is pretty neat. You can always export these results into a CSV, JSON, or XML file if you wanted to see all of them. So this is cool, but I do want to do a little bit more querying, and so I'm going to open another script. And let's say that I want to see kind of how many rows are in the table. So I'm going to do something like this: storm events, and then pipe the count. So I'm going to hit run. And so this number tells me how many rows are in the table. And then let's say that I want to see, let's say I want to see all the flood events in California that happened in February of 2007. And so I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to grab my query. So I'm going to hit run. So essentially I'm giving it the start time, the event type, which is flood, state of California, and then hit run. So let's do high winds. Awesome. So we see a couple of events here. We'll see the start time, end time, state, California, which is right because that's what we asked for, and then everywhere that there was a high wind. And then we see a couple of episode narratives as well. So it gives you a little bit of a summary of what happened for that particular event type, which is neat. So Custo query language is very exciting. It is read-only, but there's a lot of neat things you can do with it. And this documentation page helps a lot. So definitely recommend going through that. So now let's do some ingestion of our data. And I want to show you how to do that, since there's a lot of different ways you can ingest data with Azure Synapse Data Explorer. And so in our case, I'm just going to ingest data from my local machine. And there's something called a one-click ingestion method from the Data Explorer web interface. So there's this link that I go to. And so this is the Data Explorer web interface. I'm going to need my query endpoint that I got once I created my Data Explorer pool. So I inputted that over here. I selected the database, and then I've already created a table. So I'm going to select my table right here. Then I hit next. And so here you can, upload some files. I'm going to upload some Titanic data, and then I'm going to hit next. And so it says, oh, so we have to go back to previous since this is not to a CSV file. Okay, that should work now. So now it's able to figure out the data format. It shows me a preview of the data, which is really neat. And then I can start ingesting it. So there's a couple of quick queries I can do if I wanted. I can take the top 10 rows, and this takes me to the Data Explorer page. So still inside the web portal, but it'll allow me to query here as well. So this is very neat. This is just how you ingest data, but there's a lot of different ways. So we just ingested from our local machine, but if I can go back to ingesting new data, so let's just select existing for now. So you can ingest data from your blob or from a file, a blob container, ADLS Gen 2 container, or Event Hub. So there's a couple of different options there. Okay, so now that we kind of have our data in the Data Explorer pool, I want to create a Power BI dashboard using the Azure Data Explorer Power BI connector. So to do that, we're going to go to our Power BI desktop. And there's a couple of steps listed in a tutorial that I'll also link. But essentially the only prereqs are that you need your Azure subscription, which we have, and then you need to download the Power BI desktop. So I have that open already over here, and I've actually already created a visualization tool. But essentially, in the pre-steps, all you're doing is you're connecting your data from your Data Explorer. So you're going to need your query endpoint again. And that's going to be your cluster. And so once you kind of put in all of that information, then you can select different types of visualization. So over here, I've selected the clustered column chart. And so that'll bring up a blank chart. And then from your fields over here, I've selected damage crops and state. So I want to see the damage crops by state. And I've kind of separated it by top 1,000 rows in the table. So I'm able to see this data in a chart fashion, which is a lot easier on the eyes. And then you can do things like you can save this report and create multiple visualizations in Power BI. So this is very neat. This is all connected, which makes it very simple. And that is the demo of Data Explorer. So that brings us towards the end of this session. Here are a couple of additional resources if you wanted to go through the demo that I did and the tutorial. And also if you want to just know more information about Data Explorer. But thank you all for tuning in. Again, remember to add any feedback you have regarding the session or any questions you have, and then you can access all of our sessions at aka.ms/MAA. Thank you.